இன்றைக்கு பிஸ்னஸ் ஆகட்டும், நார்மல் லைஃப் ஆகட்டும், ஏஐ பற்றி எல்லா இடத்துலயும் பேச்சு நடந்துட்டே இருக்கு. ஏஐ வந்து நம்மளுடைய வாழ்க்கையில இனிமேல் தவிர்க்க முடியாத ஒரு பவரா இருக்குது. பிசினஸ்ல நீங்க பார்த்தீங்கன்னாக்கா, இன்னைக்கு ஏஐ இல்லாம எந்த ஒரு பிசினஸும் சர்வைவ் பண்ண முடியாது, ஸ்கேல் அப் பண்ண முடியாது அப்படின்ற மாதிரியான ஒரு சூழ்நிலைக்கு தள்ளப்பட்டுச்சு. இன்னைக்கு நம்மளுடைய பிராண்ட்புலி பிளே மாஸ்டர் டாக்ல ஒரு ஏஐ எக்ஸ்பர்ட்டை நம்ம மீட் பண்ண போறோம். மை ஃப்ரெண்ட் மிஸ்டர் ஜோசப் ஆப்ரஹாம். இவர் வந்து பிஸ்னஸ் கன்சல்டிங் அண்ட் ஏஐ இன்ஜினியரிங் இதில் வந்து நிறைய விஷயங்களை பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கிறாரு. ஹி ஹஸ் கிரியேட்டட் ஒன் பியூட்டிஃபுல் ஆர்கனைசேஷன். இஸ் அ ஃபவுண்டர் மெம்பர் ஆஃப் குளோபல் ஏஐ ஃபோரம். இவருக்கு லிங்க்டின்ல நிறைய ஃபாலோவர்ஸ் இருக்காங்க. ஹி இஸ் கனெக்டிங் இன்டர்நேஷ்னல் பிஸ்னஸஸ், பிக் பிஸ்னஸ்மென் அண்ட் பிக் ஸ்டார்ட் அப்ஸ் அண்டு எஸ்பெஷலி ஏஐ டெக் ஸ்டார்ட் அப்ஸ் இவங்களோடலாம் வந்து ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கிறாரு. இன்னைக்கு அவரோட நம்ம நிறைய விஷயங்களை நம்ம கற்றுக்க போகிறோம். தேங்க்யூ ஜோசப் ஃபார் கம்மிங். வெல்கம் டு Brandpuli Playmaster Talks பாட்காஸ்ட். எங்களுடைய சேனல் பற்றி சொல்லணும் அப்படின்னா, கிரியேட்டர்ஸ் அண்ட் ஆண்டர்பிரினர்ஸ் தான் எங்களுடைய ஃபாலோவர்ஸ். தமிழ் ஸ்பீக்கிங், ஆனால் இங்கிலீஷ் நல்லா புரிஞ்சிக்க முடியும் அவங்களால. நீங்கள் அதனால் உங்களுக்கு எப்படி கம்ஃபர்டபுளாக இருக்கோ அப்படி நீங்கள் பேசலாம். என்னுடைய ஃபர்ஸ்ட் கேள்வி என்ன அப்படின்னா, ஒரு கொட்டேஷன், ஐ டோன்ட் நோ யார் சொன்னார்னு தெரியல. இன் ஷார்ட் டேர்ம் வி டென்ட் டு ஓவர் எஸ்டிமேட் த டெக் பிரேக் த்ரூஸ், இன் லாங் டேர்ம் வி அண்டர் எஸ்டிமேட் தெம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. ஸோ ஏஐயும் இன்னைக்கு வந்து எல்லாருமே ஓவர் எஸ்டிமேட் அதிகமாக பேசுகிற மாதிரி தெரியுது. அண்ட் லாங் டேர்மில் அதை வந்து அண்டர் எஸ்டிமேட் பண்ணுற மாதிரியும் தெரியுது. ஏன்னா ஏஐ பார்த்து இதை பயப்படுறாங்க, ஒரு ரஷ் இருக்குது. ஆனால் என்ன பண்ணுறதுன்னு தெரியாத மாதிரி ஒரு ஸ்மால் பிஸ்னஸஸ்லேருந்து பிக் பிஸ்னஸ்லேருந்து எல்லாருமே தடுமாற்ற மாதிரி இருக்குது. அதே சமயத்தில் லாங் டேர்மில் இது கிரியேட் பண்ண போகிற இம்பேக்ட் வந்து ரொம்ப ஃப்ரைட்ஃபுல்லாகவும் இருக்குது. ஸோ இதை பற்றி நீங்கள் என்ன நினைக்கிறீங்க?
ஸோ AI வந்து it's not a hype exactly. It is real, but there are certain pockets where we see a hype, right? So in simple terms, AI is already in motion, right? Whether you like it, you don't like it, we are in motion. And AI is not ChatGPT. I would like to start from there.
Correct. ஏன்னா AI நோனே எல்லாரும் ChatGPT மட்டும் தான்.
Absolutely, yeah. So the idea of AI is, if you ask me, we are right now in a place where we are in the phase of efficiency. So we are in that wave at this given point of time. We are not yet in the wave of intelligence, right? We are still far away from that. We are right now from a point of, when I say efficiency, what I mean by that is anything that has a pattern, that has, some kind of rules, that has some kind of, aspects that align with each other. We can now take all of that and put it together and then give it, and make it autonomous, right? So that's exactly where we are. So we are more,
அதாவது நீங்க என்ன சொல்ல வரீங்கன்னா, இப்போ இருக்கிற ஏஐன்றது வந்து ரூல் பேஸ்டா, ருட்டீனா ஒரு பேட்டர்னை ஃபாலோ பண்ற ஒரு விஷயத்தை எஃபிஷியண்டா பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கு.
Right. While there are good models, right, but the models are not yet adopted. I'm talking purely from adoption point of view, right? There are great models out there, but in daily life, right now, what we use and what we see is largely around something that is, we moved to the autonomous aspect of things, right? We're calling them as agentic AI. So what an agent would do is, on your behalf, it would make a purchase. So for example, instead of you going to Zomato and ordering, an AI will know that this is your likes and preferences, this is what you tend to order. Let's say, your pantry is depleted with resources. Upon the AI என்ன பண்ணோம்னா, it will go and check, okay, இதெல்லாம் இல்லை, and it can, on your behalf, it can make a purchase. Of course, there's human in the loop, so it will check with you, இந்த மாதிரி purchase பண்ண முடியுமா அப்படின்னு. So today we are all adopting to AI. So adoption, if you have to do adoption, then there is a push, if you see. For example, Perplexity has released a brilliant browser called Comet. So the Comet is an agentic browser or agentic interface, wherein, let's say, instead of going through all your emails, you can basically give a prompt there saying that, what are the emails that I haven't read so far? Can you just summarize them and tell me which is more important? And if there's something to schedule, then schedule tomorrow from such time to such time I'm available. It is going to go and do that for you, right? Of course, it will not complete the whole action. It will ask you a few questions. I use an app called Fairies, and it does a great job. Say, for example, if I want to tomorrow schedule some time with you, I will ask Fairies to basically go check your calendar, send an email to you. Once a response comes, automatically, if I'm available, it will say yes, and it will also send you a Google Meet link, let's say if it's a virtual call. So this is all patterns. Whatever I told you is like going back to the same thing. It's got patterns. It has, in
Fixed
some
rules.
way, there are some rules that it is following. And of course, there's human in the loop. So that's why we are calling it as efficiency. Whereas there are bigger models that are coming, which are more powerful, right? So, which is where we are now talking about ASI, right? Artificial super intelligence. Right now, we are right now in the phase of general intelligence. We're going to move to artificial super intelligence, wherein, 5 years down the line, or maybe 8 years down the line, anybody who is going to be born will not be smarter than any AI. Is that simple?
Okay.
Right? So,
Okay.
which means that the AI is going to be innately intelligent, which means it can start thinking on its own, and it can start acting on its own. It will be completely autonomous, not partially autonomous. So, hype பொறுத்து வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, of course, a lot of them think that a lot of things are changing. I need to understand AI, and AI is a very hyped thing. So, for example, a lot of people think they're using AI, but it is actually not AI. It is still simple automation that is running. So, a lot of companies also sell and package it that way. But if you're talking purely about AI, I mean, it is real, right? Everyone's adopting it. Good AI is where you don't know you're using AI.
Okay.
That's the way we define a good AI. So, which means the user doesn't even know. Simple case in point is Zomato penalizes you if you spend more than, they have a specific cutoff time. So, if you spend more time on Zomato, you're a bad user for Zomato, in a simple term. Because that means you are going to get into decision paralysis. So, good users are the ones who make decisions in less than 5 to 6 seconds, because they're coming there, it is an impulse buy, they want to quickly order a food, it is done. The moment you start spending more than, let's say, 6 minutes or 7 minutes, it is really bad, which means it's a good AI. You don't know an AI is at play, it is working, and it penalizes you. In fact, it will actually start showing you bad choices. So it won't allow you to actually make a choice.
Okay.
Because these are the people, these are the kind of users that Zomato has figured out, who are notorious, down the line. They will probably not be happy, satisfaction score is going to come down, they're probably going to reorder, right? Or they're going to bring some complaints. So the characteristics are mapped to certain kind of people. So Zomato penalizes. So that's the case in point where AI is at work, but not many really know that it is at work. So that's a good AI. When I say good, I'm not talking about moral good or bad. The implication is only about in terms of how do we know it's a good AI and not a good AI, in terms of the efficiency aspect of it.
இப்போ லாங் டேர்மில் வந்து ஏஐ இஸ் கோயிங் டு கிரியேட் அ ஹியூஜ் இம்பாக்ட். நீங்கள் வந்து ஒரு ஹியூமன் மாதிரியே அது திங்க் பண்ண போகுது, ஹியூமன் மாதிரியே அது ஒர்க் பண்ண போகுது அப்படின்னு சொல்கிறீங்க. நம்மளுடைய லைஃபு, நம்மளுடைய சாய்ஸஸ்லாம் எப்படி இருக்குன்னு தெரியல. பட் அட் த சேம் டைம் இன்னைக்கு வந்து ஒரு டெக்னாலஜி அடாப்டேஷன் அப்படின்றது வந்து எப்போவுமே ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வந்து பிஸ்னஸ் கம்யூனிட்டிக்கு தான் இருக்குது.
ரைட்.
ஸோ பிஸ்னஸ்மேன் தான் வந்து ஒரு ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டிஸை ஃபியூச்சரிஸ்டிக்காக பார்த்து அதை பண்ணுறாங்க. இப்போ ஒரு ட்ரெடிஷ்னல் பிஸ்னஸ்மேன் வந்து ஏஐ அடாப்ஷன் ஆர் ஏஐ அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் எப்படி இருக்குது? நீங்கள் வந்து டெக் வேர்ல்டில் இருக்கீங்க, டெக் ஆண்டர்பிரினர்ஸ் அண்ட் டெக் ஃபவுண்டர்ஸோட டே டு டே பேசிஸில் நீங்கள் பேசிகிட்டு இருக்கீங்க, அவங்களோட இன்ட்ராக்ட் பண்ணுறீங்க. அவங்களுடைய புரிதல், அவங்களுடைய செயல்பாடுகள் எப்படி இருக்கு?
So I'm going to take 2 steps back. So when I look for any tech adoption, I only go to one person, which is my mother.
Okay.
So I do a mom test.
Okay.
If my mom is able to understand it, that means anybody in this world,
age ipo?
She should be close to about 70s, right? Okay. In her 70s. So the simple test is this, that whenever my son, who is about 8 years old, asks any question, she would actually go to ChatGPT.
Okay.
Right? So it's no longer my mom answering. Now my mom also is very smart, and she's able to understand. So when we think about an adoption point of view, there's a wrong idea that only tech people adopt a lot and traditional businesses don't. The way I see it is slightly different. It has largely got to do with return on investment.
Okay.
Right? So if the technology is going to give a large return on investment, anybody, I think, is ready to commit to it, right? Is that simple? So every traditional business person has a point of sale. Every traditional business person is using a tally. Every traditional business person is, able to understand that my supply chain is working this way, so I need to monitor my supply chain. So I think, well, it is not very technical. It is, the adoption is pretty high. AI sits as a layer on top of that. Like AI is not going to be something which is inherently different. நான் வந்து அதை வந்து கண்டுபிடிச்சி போயிட்டு ஃபைண்ட் அவுட் பண்ணி ஏஐ என்ன அப்படின்னு இல்லாமல், இட் இஸ் த அடாப்ஷன் இஸ் கோயிங் டு பி அ இன்க்ரிமெண்டல் அடாப்ஷன், ரைட்? ஸோ இன்ஸ்டெட் ஆஃப் மீ sitting and waiting for me to know when my shipment is going to come, I'm probably going to know, if I know that there's an AI available, then I'm going to basically chat with that and figure that out or whatever that is. So the adoption is going to be very, very incremental in essence. It's not going to be in some way disruptive, right? The second part, நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா, traditional business people, they so tech always has these phases, right? So you have early adopters, which is usually the tech folks will adopt to it. And then you have the early majority, then you have the late majority, and then you have the laggards, right? So இதுதான் ஒரு laggards would simply mean that அவங்க வந்து they are forcefully they join the race group because there's no other choice. Okay. Is that simple? Simpler சொல்லணும்னா, let's take for example Ola, Uber. There were people in the early phase who were business travelers. So they booked Ola back in their day, and Ola also targeted them, right? Ola, Uber, whatever. அது அப்புறமா வந்து they introduced it to the next set of people, right? By incentivizing, saying free rides, அது இதுன்னு சொல்லி they incentivized. அதில் வந்து many people were skeptical, but there was an early majority there. Then there's a late majority. When this early majority, they went and evangelized and they said, in the Mari Ola free kududhu, you should try it and all. And then the late majority came. But remember, the laggards were still doing autos, walking down, taking an auto, or they were still, doing some way, booking a call taxi, if you remember, calling and booking a call taxi. So because of them, travels were still alive, if you think about it. But today, maybe there's a very small, minuscule number of people who are still that way. Sometimes when I travel, I see some travels, inga paapen, board lam paapen. So I know that, okay, laggards இன்னுமே இருக்காங்க, right?
அது ஆக்சுவலா மோஸ்ட்லி அந்த இந்த ட்ரிப் எல்லாம் போவாங்கல்ல, லாங் ஜர்னி
ட்ரிப். கரெக்ட். ஸோ அந்த லாங் ஜர்னி ட்ரிப் கூட ஓலால இருக்கு. அவுட் ஸ்டேஷன், யூ கேன் புக் அன் அவுட் ஸ்டேஷன் ட்ரிப் அண்ட் ஆல் தட். ஸோ there are certain elements that are there. So, and in fact, if you see 3 years down the line, they will also come and join. Same thing with AI.
ஏன்னா அவங்களுக்கு அந்த மார்க்கெட் எக்ஸிஸ்டன்ஸ்ல
இல்லாம போயிடும். கரெக்ட். Same with AI, right? So in certain specific aspects நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா, for example, let's take a traditional business. Where are the disruptions that are naturally happening without them knowing? One is in finance. So since it's pattern, it's numbers, it's very clear. This is a very straightforward way in which adoption is also happening, disruption is happening on a daily basis. The second aspect is marketing and sales, right? So instead of you sitting and spending so much time trying to know what to market, where to market and all of that, you can pretty much figure out right from figuring out who your persona is, enga target pannu, edu pannu and all that. So it all starts with ads. So if you're going to take an ad framework and run any ads on any kind of platform, இப்போ வந்து you don't even know that Meta is already giving you an option saying that target these people because it's the best. இதுதான் வந்து lookalike audience. What is a lookalike audience? Lookalike audience is again pattern based. If இவங்கெல்லாம் வந்து வாங்குறாங்கன்னா இதே மாதிரி மக்கள் இங்கெல்லாம் இருக்காங்க. So probably the geography is changing, or let's say one of the element or demographic aspect is changing. So it's also getting disrupted, right? Third aspect, if you see, is more in terms of how operations are run. So it could be in terms of every day people are coming and they were putting the fingerprint and all that. Or maybe there was an iris scan and all of that, and it was not tied to the payroll. Every month you have to sit down and tie it into the payroll, and it was a separate file, you uploaded it or whatever you did. Now you don't have to do that, right? The systems clearly understand who is that. Now we have gone to geofencing, where we know who has come and how long they have logged into their system. It works really well for remote work as well, right? So you don't need any more that mouse moving, mouse tracking, அதெல்லாம் வந்து தாண்டி நம்ம வந்தாச்சு, right? So there are so many areas that I can clearly see where AI is now absolutely taking over, which we don't know. So for example, if you take our WhatsApp, நீங்க எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா, வாட்ஸ்அப்பில் ஒரு ஏஐ உட்காந்துருக்கு, மேலே வந்து ஒரு ப்ளூ கலராக ஒன்று இருக்கும்,
Meta.
யாரும் வந்து மெட்டா யாரும் தெரியாது என்ன, பட் அந்த ஏஐ வந்து எல்லாமே வந்து கேட்குது,
எல்லாமே
எல்லாமே பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கு, என்னென்ன ஃபார்வர்ட் பண்ணுறீங்க எல்லாமே வந்து இட் இஸ் பேசிக்லி லைக் டூயிங். வி ஹவ் நாட் ரியலைஸ் ஒரு ஏஐ அங்கே உட்காந்துருக்கு, ரைட், விச் மீன்ஸ் ஐ கேன் கோ அண்ட் ஆஸ்க் அட் ஏஐ, ரைட், ஹே ஏஐ, நான் வந்து இந்த மாதிரி இந்த லாஸ்ட் வீக் வந்து பேசினேன், right, can you help me understand what that conversation was about? It could be a reference check of the back, or it could be quick commerce as well, right? So I can in fact WhatsApp has tried this and it's worked out pretty well. Not necessarily in India, like TikTok has done that to a large extent, where you can actually the social commerce and quick commerce. So I'm seeing a reel and I kind of like that handbag there. I can just click the handbag and buy it. If you see, it's a brilliant AI use case because yes, it clicks it, but it actually in the background it checks where the supply chain is there, it's available or not. If it is not there, don't even show it. Don't even create that identifier for it, right? So, அந்த மாதிரி நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா there are so many different things that are happening, which means now LinkedIn, I mean Meta is basically owning WhatsApp and Instagram. Whatever I'm seeing on Instagram can come through WhatsApp to me without me knowing. ரைட், ஸோ எவ்வளோக்கு எவ்வளோ நம்ம சீம்லெஸ்ஸாக போகிறோம், விச் மீன்ஸ் தெரியாமலே நான் வந்து நூல்ல நுழைறது, ரைட், சைலண்ட் கில்லர் மாதிரி, ரைட். தட் இஸ் வேர் ஐ திங்க் ஏஐ இஸ் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் டேக்கிங் ஓவர். ஸோ இஃப் யூ டு ஆன்சர் யர் கொஸ்டின், இட் இஸ் நாட் தட் நம்ம ஏஐ எம்ப்ரேஸ் பண்ணணும், ஏஐ பற்றி கற்றுக்கணும், ஏஐயில் ஒரு கோர்ஸ் பண்ணணும். ஐ டோன்ட் திங்க் தட்ஸ் வாட் இட் இஸ், ரைட், பிகாஸ் இட் இஸ் எனிவேஸ் real. It is like taking over the world. It's conquering every single day and we don't even know, right? So that's where I see the adoption happening. And also companies who are AI companies, they understand where the customers are. So they don't also want to bring a friction into the game, right? That kattukittu. So for example, why did ChatGPT become the most most viral app in the recent times? Because it was a very simple interface. And if you look at the way AI came, we called it as LLM, right? So I konja technical ah poren, but I want to quickly so LLM stands for large language models. Why didn't they take large data models? Why didn't they take something else? Why did they go with language? Because they understood that naturally we have to get into how semantics actually work, right? So when the ChatGPT interface came, it was basically a simple interface with just a open thing saying that come do whatever you want to do, ask whatever you want to ask. So if you think about it, it goes against the idea of if I'm introducing an app, நான் என்ன பண்ணணும், ஒரு வெப்சைட் பில்ட் பண்ணணும், நான் சொல்லி தரணும், நான் வந்து கிளியராக எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணணும், இந்த பெனிஃபிட்லாம் இருக்குப்பா வாங்கன்னு. பட் ChatGPT அந்த மாதிரி it never came to us that way. It was just an open interface, ask whatever you want. நீங்கள் கேட்ட அப்புறமா அதுவே வந்து நெக்ஸ்ட் அது சொல்லுது, நெக்ஸ்ட் இது பண்ணு, ரைட், ask why. And so it's giving you nudges to do the next step, right? So let's say I want to
first step நம்மள எடுக்க வைக்கிறது.
Correct, exactly. The adoption is pretty awesome because there was novelty, there was curiosity gap which was getting closed. So people would say, okay, let me ask some simple stupid question which I know the answer. So let me test and see whether it really knows, right? So probably let's say I would go back and say,
எங்க பசங்க கூட இருக்காங்க, சில கேள்வி கேட்பாங்க, கேக்கும்போதே தெரியும் நமக்கு தெரியுதான்னு செக் பண்ணுறாங்க, அந்த ரேஞ்சுக்கு கேட்கும்.
Exactly, right? So so I'll go and do a check and see. So when I realize that it's giving me a right answer, it is no longer a toy. It's no longer a quiz master quizzing it. Now I slowly understand I can do a lot more things. I can probably ask, hey, I'm doing this business, what should I do, right? Who is my right kind of customer? So it kind of gives me something which I never thought about. Now it makes me very excited about it. So if you look at the stickiness factor from a psychology point of view, it's very, very high. Because அது வந்து நீங்கள் ஒரு டைம் நீங்கள் யூஸ் பண்ணீங்கன்னா it is somehow in some way you're getting addicted to it, right? And you start realizing that it can do great. இப்போ ரீசெண்டாக பார்த்தீங்கன்னா நானோ பனானா, ரைட், கூகுள் ரிலீஸ் நானோ பனானா. Now everybody is uploading their photo. Of course it's a big privacy concern அங்க. ஆனால் எல்லாரும் அப்லோட் பண்ணிட்டு இந்த மாதிரி எனக்கு வந்து exactly. The adoption நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா everyone's adopting, right? It's not just youngsters adopting or Gen Z is adopting. Everyone's trying to adopt and get to the it's a trend thing, right? And they get into it. So to answer the question, I think the adoption is never going to be about I'm learning a whole new thing, and this in the whole new thing is only done by edutech guys.
Okay.
லைக் ஏஐ வந்து ஏஐ கோர்ஸ் முடிக்கல நீங்கள் ஏஐ கோர்ஸ் பண்ணணும் ரைட். இந்த பூச்சாண்டி காமிக்கிறது எல்லாமே வந்து இஸ் தெர் இஸ் சம்படி பெனிஃபிட்டிங் அவுட் ஆஃப் இட், அண்ட் தே ஆர் த கைஸ் ஹூ ஆர் பேசிக்லி லைக் bring it that way. But AI adoption is going to always be very seamless, and we will not even know it, and traditional businesses are going to get disrupted very soon, and I think that is happening anyways, any which way.
See, இப்போ நான் I am running an agentic company.
Right. I'm so sorry.
No, பரவாயில்லை. I'll tell you. I am running an agentic company. We are selling AI for accountants அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஒரு கோர்ஸ் நாங்க ரன் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம்.
Right.
I'll tell you my standpoint in this. Okay.
Right.
இன்னைக்கு வந்து accountants எடுத்துட்டீங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. See, we started from மேனுவல் அக்கௌண்டிங்ல இருந்து டாலி 4.5 டாஸ் பேஸ்ட், அந்த அக்கௌண்டிங்ல இருந்து 5.4, அப்புறம் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் 6.3, 5.4 தான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் GUI சாஃப்ட்வேர் டாலியில். இன்னைக்கும் நான் அக்கௌண்டன்ஸ் பார்த்தீங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க, நிறைய விஷயங்கள் அவங்க மேனுவலாக பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. நிறைய அக்கௌண்டன்ஸ் மேனுவலாக பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. அவங்களுக்கு இந்தியாவில் வந்து ஏஐ அடாப்ஷன் வந்து ரொம்ப ரொம்ப போரா இருக்கு. ஸோ அதனால எஜுகேட் பண்ணுறதுக்காக நாங்களும் அதை பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். வாட் யூ ஆர் சேயிங் இஸ், நான் ஒரு விதத்தில் நான் ஒத்துக்கிறேன். அது எப்படின்னா ஏஐ அடாப்ஷன் பண்ணணுன்ற அந்த ஃபோர்ஸபுளாக போகணும்னு அவசியம் கிடையாது. ஆக்சுவலி குளோபல் லாஜிஸ்டிக்ஸ் டைரக்டர் மிஸ்டர் நவீன் பிரகாஷோட நான் ஒரு பாட்காஸ்ட் பண்ணோம் கொஞ்ச நாளைக்கு முன்னாடி. அதில் வந்து அவர்கிட்ட கேட்டேன் நான், இந்த ஏஐ வந்து உங்களுடைய லாஜிஸ்டிக்ஸில் என்ன பண்ண போகுதுன்னா, என்ன பண்ண போகுது நீங்கள் ஹவ் யூ ஆர் ப்ரிப்பேர் டு தட் அப்படின்னு ஒரு கேள்வி கேட்டது. அவர் என்ன பதில் சொன்னார்னா, அது என்னுடைய கவலை இல்லை, என்னுடைய சாஃப்ட்வேர் வெண்டாருடைய கவலை.
எக்ஸாக்ட்லி.
அது என்னுடைய கவலை கிடையாது, என்னுடைய சாஃப்ட்வேர் வெண்டார். நான் வந்து எல்லாத்துக்கும் சாஃப்ட்வேர் வெண்டார் வச்சிருக்கேன். என்னுடைய இஆர்பி ஒருத்தன் டெவலப் பண்ணி தரான், என்னுடைய ஒவ்வொரு பிளாட்ஃபார்மும் ஒருத்தன் டெவலப் பண்ணி தரான். அவனில் ஒருத்தன் ஏஐ யூஸ் பண்ணி அவன் அவுட் கம்பீட் பண்ணிட்டு வருவான். சார் நான் இந்த ஃபீச்சரை பெட்டர் ஃபீச்சர் தரேன்னா நான் அவன்கிட்ட போய் ஒர்க் பண்ண போறேன். ஏன் லாஜிஸ்டிக்ஸ் பிஸ்னஸ் அப்படிதான் இருக்க போகுது. ஸோ ஐ கேன் totally agree with you, but only one thing, hype எல்லாம் கிரியேட் பண்ண நாங்க கோர்ஸ் நடத்தல. நாங்க பண்றது வந்து ஜென்யூனாவே வந்து அடாப்ஷன் லெவல் வந்து அக்கௌண்டன்ட்ஸ்க்கு, பிகாஸ் ஏன்னா அவங்க ரூல் பேஸ்ட் பீப்புள். எந்த ஒரு டெக்னாலஜியும்
I'm absolutely not against evangelizing, right? See, the idea here is that when I talk about edutech companies, I'm talking about anybody who monetizes that whole aspect. So you are evangelizing, right? I mean, there's a clear distinction that I see. நீங்க வந்து அவங்க edutech companies பாத்தீங்கன்னா
இல்ல நீங்க சொல்ற மாதிரி அது வந்து ஒரு ஃபியர் மாங்கர் கிரியேட் பண்ணி அந்த மாதிரிலாம் பண்றாங்க. தட்ஸ் வெரி அன்ஃபேர் அண்ட் தட்ஸ் ராங். ஆனா அந்த மாதிரி கம்பெனிஸ் வித்ஸ்டாண்ட் பண்றது கிடையாது லாங் டர்ம்ல. இது உண்மையிலே நல்ல டேக் அவே ஜோ. எப்படி ஃபீல் பண்ணுறேன் அப்படின்னா, நம்ம அதுக்குள்ளே போயிட்டோம், அது வாழுது, அது இருக்கு, நம்ம அதில் தான் இருக்குன்றதை புரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டா போதும். ஸோ அதுக்கு மேலே நம்ம ரொம்ப பெருசாக பண்ண வேண்டியதில்லை. ஸோ இப்போ இது இந்த பக்கம் இருக்கட்டும். இப்போ இன்னொரு விஷயம்னா ஏஐ கம்பெனிஸ். ஓகே, அதில் வந்து ஓப்பன் ஏஐ மாதிரியான, ஆந்த்ரோபிக் மாதிரியான, அதுக்கப்புறம் மைக்ரோசாஃப்ட், ஜெமினை, எல்லா பிக் டெக் கம்பெனிஸ் ஹியூஜாக $1 trillion $3 trillion இன்வெஸ்ட் பண்ணுறாங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்கிறாங்க. அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு கம்பெனிஸ் இருக்குது. இன்னைக்கு ஏஐ வச்சு குட்டி ஸ்டார்ட் அப்ஸ் இருக்கு. அண்ட் தே ஆர் ட்ரைங் சம் ஏஐ ஏஜென்ட்ஸ், தே ஆர் ட்ரைங் சம் ஏஐ ஒர்க் ஃப்ளோஸ் அண்ட் சாஃப்ட்வேர் இன்டெகிரேஷன்ஸ் பண்ணுறாங்க. இதெல்லாம் பண்ணுறாங்க. இந்த கம்பெனிஸ் என்ன, நம்ம எப்படி பிரிக்கலாம், இந்த மாதிரி கம்பெனிஸ் எப்படி பிரிக்கலாம்? இது கொஞ்சம் ஒரு காமன் மேன் புரியுற மாதிரி சொல்லுங்க.
So let's ரொம்ப பேசிக்கா பிரேக் டவுன் பண்றேன். So there are companies who come up with the basal model. We call it as native model. So நீங்க சொன்ன companies தான் basically. It could be OpenAI, it could be Anthropic. OpenAI has come up with ChatGPT and then many versions of GPT. You have Anthropic has come with Claude. They have a company called Cohere. You have Google, which has come up with Gemini and a few other models as well. So the money பார்த்தீங்கன்னா there are very few companies like DeepSeek is a model. So இதெல்லாம் we call it as native models.
Even Indian government of India is working on
Sarvam. Sarvam. So these are all basal models, and these are models that are trained and are super effective, right? So this is the first category of companies. We call them as core foundational models, right? So this is the first layer of companies. But in the foundational models are not necessarily application driven. For example, you could use ChatGPT to generate a piece of content, right? Which is good. So let's say you want to generate a blog, you generate a blog, and it's pretty easy to do that. Problem, case in point, I have to train it. So now I have to give I have to use the right kind of prompts. I have to ensure that I am giving the right kind of knowledge base to it. I have to create some kind of rules. I have to create some kind of guardrails for it, and I have to most importantly, which is not there, which is I have to create a memory. Because every time I go to GPT, it's creating a new window for me, and I'm chatting on that. So then I had to create a GPT in it, my own custom GPT. Custom GPT create panalume the memory is not very great, right? It will hallucinate sometimes. I'll come back to the word hallucination in some time. But this is pretty much what it is. So on the foundational base model there are companies who build very specific use cases. So let's say, for example, there's a company called Copy.ai, which are Jasper or Write Sonic. These are companies who are saying, hey, I will create blogs for you. I'll create content for you or whatever that could be, right? So I will do that effective to you, which means I will train it. So let's say, your company, right, will have a lot of knowledge base. You're doing a lot of sales calls. You have a website. You have a lot of sales materials. I will create a tonality to it. I will understand what you really do. I will create, let's say, a base model to it. And I will understand there's a point of view, right? So as a CEO of a company, as a CTO of a company, you have a point of view on why you're solving what you're solving. So the laminate, what I will do is I will basically create a new model based on which it will create, let's say, a tofu content or top of the funnel content or a bofu content, right? So I am talking to a client, I have to send a proposal instantaneously. I can generate a bofu content instantaneously, right? Now, in the Madri companies, they are very application driven. So we are going to call them as agentic AI companies. They're creating agents based on the basal models, right? In the agentic AI companies, you can verticalize it. You can say for lawyers, somebody is doing something. For, let's say, financial insurance companies, there are some people are doing it for oil and gas. There are some people are doing it for, let's say, credit reconciliation. So use cases are many, right? The point is, again, it's based on the foundational model. So this is the second layer. So these are the two layers in which everybody is right now at this given point of time playing. It's multi-agent. So one agent talks to the other agent. So let's say, for example, I am in insurance. There's a credit rating agent that will actually work. There's one more agent which will basically do the, one is to map the risk, the other is to basically release that amount of money. So you can instantaneously monitor that person depending on not just his previous financial record, but his economic preferences, his spending preferences, what this person does on social media, from behavioral preferences. Now, based panni, I can instantaneously create a credit scoring and then deploy how much should be released to this person, if this person will pay or not. Instantaneous we can do it. So there are multi agents that are talking to each other. There's a handover that's happening and all that. So banks have ERP layer, and the ERP layer I take the whole thing, and the ETL data, we call it as ETL data. The ETL data na pudu data schema create panno. So there are agents that do that. I can create into a new schema and add all of the data there, and this data can talk to each other and then create a whole new dashboard. So multi-agents, right? So you can keep building on top of it. We call it RAG. Many models in there, but largely all of them are in the second layer, right? They're not the foundational models. They're built on the foundational model. Use cases based money. They do a lot of different things that are happening. In simple terms, this is what in the ரெண்டு layer at this point of time is working.
See, இந்த ரெண்டு லேயர்ல கர்சர் ஏஐ அவங்களுடைய யூசர்ஸ்க்கு பிரைஸ் 2 to 3 times ரிவைஸ் பண்ணாங்க. அது ஒரு பெரிய காரணம். ஏன்னா எங்களுக்கு பணமே நிக்கல, எக்ஸ்போனென்ஷியலா ஓடிட்டு இருக்குன்ட்டு. அப்புறம் நீங்க ஒரு ஆர்டிக்கல் போட்டிருந்தீங்க. எப்படி இந்த கம்பெனிஸ் ஆர் பர்னிங் மணி லைக் எனிதிங், as it going to be, அதை பத்தி ஒரு விஷயம் போட்டிருந்தீங்க. இப்போ என்னுடைய கவலை என்ன அப்படின்னா, ஒரு ஏஐ ஸ்டார்ட் அப் பண்ற ஒரு யங்ஸ்டர், ஒரு ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஜெனரேஷன் யங்ஸ்டர், அவன் இந்த யூசர் கேஸ் சினாரியோலாம் அவன் பண்ணுறான். ஹீ இஸ் டிபெண்ட் ஆன் தட் கோர் ஃபவுண்டேஷனல் மாடல்ஸை அவன் டிபெண்ட் பண்ணி அவன் பண்ணுறான். அவனுக்கு எப்படி ரெவென்யூ மாடல் வரும்? அதை எப்படி அவனால் ப்ரொடெக்ட் பண்ண முடியும்? அந்த மார்க்கெட்டை அவன் கஷ்டப்பட்டு அவன் கிரியேட் பண்ணுறான். ஹவு தே வில் பி ஏபிள் டு சர்வைவ்? ரியலி இட் லுக்ஸ் லைக், என்ன சொல்கிறது, the uncertainty is very very higher மாதிரி இருக்கு. So how you are going to...
The three things here are basic economics, like supply demand, point number one. Point number 2 is there is also the whole element of economics of the technology as well, right? And the third aspect is whether you will be able to scale to a bigger market, right? So first is unit economics of supply demand, just basic. So if I had to map it this way, if you are going to take a very niche use case today, right, which has, let's say, a smaller TAM, it is good in one way, it is bad in one way, right? Which means it is like doing a research of finding a very unique drug that can like eliminate, let's say, cancer, for example. But it is not tested. It's a good thesis. It has worked a little bit. You know that there are a lot of things that are coming together, but you still have to do clinical trials, both animal trials and then human trials, and then finally it has to come. Problem in this is somebody has to back you for that. Like you cannot conjure up things. So that's the niche problem. Now in the TAM, if it's larger, which is total addressable market, when the number larger, then there are too many players, which means the entry barrier is not there. Okay. Anybody can play in this. Now what you are going to like face is pricing war, because there will be cannibalization. If you today say I'm going to give $4 for something, somebody will say no, I'll give you maybe like $3 or $2, right? Then instantaneously your market is wiped because there's no stickiness. People switching cost is very easy until unless I've given too much of data to you that I have to think about again laying that whole data pipelines together and all that. So these are commonly the real problems. But there are specific use cases where niche is important. There are specific use cases where you can still go ahead and play the mass market because the market is way, way too big. So the maturity to understand where the supply demand is, right, is very, very important. I would say if you are somebody who's experienced, you've been in a field, you understand the field. Let's have example, you understand oil and gas really, really well. You're seeing a use case, you're in shipping. Let's say you've been a captain of a ship or a master of a ship, and you're able to see some very unique use case. Every time you go to a port and you dock there, you're seeing a use case that is interesting. Then I think it's good for you to go and meet a person who can build AI for you. And that will take time because all the shipping companies have to adopt to it or whatever that is. But it is worth because it's niche. You know what you're talking about. You have expertise in it and so on and so forth, right? Whereas like the problem today is there are people who don't understand the field and they're taking a sliver of a solution, right? So the sliver of a solution could be let's say நான் வந்து பிளாக் ரைட்டிங்கில் ஃபினான்ஷியல் பிளாக் சூப்பராக எழுதுன்னு சொல்லி அந்த ஸ்லிவரில் போயிட்டு நான் வந்து கிரியேட் பண்ணேன்னா in less than 10 days somebody is going to disrupt me. Correct. That is not a great way to actually go about. Other investors to back you, as investors are there to back you. Because the investment point of view is a totally different subject altogether, because investors have got a certain way how they evaluate a company and how they see it. And if they in their thesis are able to see that you invest panna next 6 months la vandu this person will raise series B, suppose the series A investor, they're very happy because in 6 months they're going to get their money back. So they're not actually playing the game of actually market penetration. They're playing the game of I put the money, I get the money, right? So that's the whole part. The second aspect ninga pathina, it is largely got to do with okay, how big is the market, as I was saying, right? Now the TAM today what you determine is not what it is. So let me give a simple example. When Zepto had to determine a market, for example, so who do you think is biggest competitor to Zepto?
அந்த டைப்ல யாருக்கும் வேற யாருமே இல்லைல்ல அவங்க.
Right. But that's a very wrong way of thinking if you actually think about it. I mean, not to say that you are wrong, but in a perspective point of view.
உங்களுக்கு ஏத்த மாதிரியே பதில் சொல்லுங்க.
Right. So I think the biggest, the problem there was the biggest competitor for them was the local Malika Kada.
Okay.
Is that simple, right? Because I go and buy groceries from there. People would say illa அந்த time வந்து I forget the name of the company. Blink, before they called themselves Blinkers, they were Grofers. There were some companies like that who will come and deliver and go. Big basket la irundanga. But the point is that they were not the real enemies. The enemies were the local kirana shops, right? Because in kirana shops, and the biggest competitor in kirana shop is not the kirana shop, the credit in the kirana shop.
Correct.
Right? So you need to think about it from that angle. So when you think about a TAM, it is not just okay, I let me just go to demographic and map it to who will buy, where they buy, how I'll disrupt. It is also about more nuanced behaviors. இப்போ நீங்கள் வந்து கிரானா ஷாப்பில் வந்து you're buying on a monthly basis, வருது எல்லாமே வருது. ஸோ யூ கோ அண்ட் எவ்ரி ஐ ரிமெம்பர் when I used to be a kid, I go taking a big list and they will கொடுத்துட்டு வந்துடுவோம், and then the person will come and deliver at the home and all that, and it's on credit, and I go and clear the credit maybe 3 days later, 4 days later, and there's constant credit, right? It's accrued credit, and then I go and clear that at some point of time. How will you disrupt this? So now there are so many factors at play when Zepto is now saying, no, it's all about convenience. So don't focus on those factors. I'm going to give you a whole new variable in the game. And the variable in the game is convenience. In less than 10 minutes, you can basically like get your grocery. Now, who did it affect the most? It affected actually the men, if you actually think about it. So, in fact, women actually don't have most of these apps on their phone, right? This quick commerce apps. Because actually the men was supposed to go and buy, right? So the wife told the person, oh, biryani panna pora, whatever we're going to do, I need XYZ, and it's not, these things are not there, poi vaangittu vaanga. So now this person says, okay, 10 minutes it comes, what I just have to pay $30 extra, 35 or 30, whatever that extra convenience fees that is, I had to pay for it, and I'm ready to pay for it. So the moment that adoption happens, that disrupting, and it's a new variable introduced there. It is not the variable of I'm buying from Kirana store. It is not a distance covered. It is not the credit thing. It's a whole new variable called convenience, and it's much more faster delivery. Can they keep up with it? No, they can't keep up with it, because ella SKU ku panna mudiyadhu. I can probably for such specific SKUs mattum dhaan panna mudiyum. So why I brought this whole thing was that TAM, when you think about TAM, there are new variables that are getting introduced every day. So as an AI company, if you're not able to introduce and understand the sentiment, understand where the market is actually moving, understand behavioral aspects, it is very, very difficult to basically attack a whole market, because the mathematics on the paper always looks great. Right, and the napkin always looks great, because you say, oh, how many people will potentially use this, and then you have a number. How many people will be into, like let's say number of unit of states. So let's say Tamil Nadu, this many people, so multiply that by total number of states, and you have a number, and that's how we usually do TAM. But that's not the way. So TAM is also getting created every day, which means, are you in the business of creating new market, not penetrating into existing market? AI is basically that game, of entering new markets,
or creating a new market.
Right? If you're not going to play that game, then AI is not the game for you at all.
So new companies has to concentrate on creating a new market.
Absolutely.
And creating a new variable that can really leverage.
Actually be absolutely, it's like can be leveraged, right? Because otherwise you're only thinking of displacement. Like, it is not like SaaS was basically displacing, let's say, largely Excel sheet.
Correct.
Right? So whatever you did in Excel sheet, now I have a app, and app basically gives me a dashboard, and I do XYZ, and it tells. But that's not the whole thing here. Here you have to know a behavior.
You have to create a paradigm shift or something.
Absolutely. It's a whole new paradigm, and you need to know the person's behavior so that you can give it to that person in the way that person naturally would consume it. Right? In that sense.
ஏற்கனவே ஏஐ ஸ்டார்ட்அப்ஸ் ரொம்ப ஹார்டான ஒரு விஷயம் நாங்கள் நினச்சிட்டு இருக்கோம். இப்போ நீங்கள் சொல்கிறத பார்க்கும்போது அது இன்னும் ஹார்ட் மாதிரி தெரியுது. ஏஐ ஸ்டார்ட்அப்ஸ் ஃபண்டிங் இல்லாமல் பண்ணவே முடியாதா?
The technology, unit economics, I want to talk about that economy there. So for you to build your model, there's a foundational model already there. So typically anybody who's building it would go and see whether I have already got data sets for it. So let's say, for example, I'm building something on ophthalmology. I have a simple scan, and the scan let's say I decide to do mobile units in every bus stand and in every railway station where I go and sit. It's just like photo booth mari, but there's something that comes and scans my iris. and it basically tells me this is your eye problem, or maybe it gives me the vision, what my vision is, or whatever it is, and it is possible with it. It's not rocket science. Now the problem for that is I have to train on so many iris. By the way, I need to train on so many sets of eye data which already is available. So I most of them will go to Hugging Face and see how many data sets are already available. What if it is not available? That means I have to now go and recruit so many people and say daily வந்து 1000 பேர் உட்கார வச்சு எல்லாரும் ஸ்கேன் எடுத்து நான் வந்து I have to start feeding the data. That is one. Second is I need to buy computational power. This is on one side. இப்போ நான் எடுத்துட்டு இதை கம்ப்யூட் பண்ணணும். அங்கே தான் வந்து you have to go, you're using a foundational model, but the foundational model is going to basically do compute for you, but the foundational model is going to pay to GPUs, companies like Nvidia. So that's why Nvidia has basically become a very big company. So on the GPU now, I have to go and pay for it. Which means today if you raise money, your majority of your money is actually going to creating the model. It's not basically, earlier when you were raising money, you were raising money only for three things. One, I want to build my team, a dream team. Second, I want to do go-to-market. Third is basically I want to ensure that I'm also doing a go-to-market in a new vertical or a new geography. So not just the one go-to-market. I will probably do enterprise go-to-market and that. So these are the three levers that I was leveraging before. But today, majority of my money is going to go to buy a model, right? Train the model. And that's a whole different shift, which means
இதுவரைக்கும் இல்லாத ஒரு விஷயம், ஃபண்டிங்ல இல்லாத ஒரு விஷயம்.
கரெக்ட். அண்ட் த ப்ராப்ளம் இதுல வந்து என்னன்னா ப்ரெடிக்டபிலிட்டி இல்லை. நான் ஜிடிஎம்ல ப்ரெடிக்டபிலிட்டி இருந்துச்சு. ஐ நியூ தட் இவ்வளோ ஆட் நான் ரன் பண்ணா இவ்வளோ கஸ்டமர் வந்துடுவாங்க.
ஒரு ROI
கால்குலேஷன் பண்ணிக்கலாம் நம்ம. ரைட் கிளிக் த்ரூ ரேட், இவ்வளோ கிளிக் த்ரூ ரேட் இருக்கும். பட் இன்னைக்கு ஒரு டேட்டில் வந்து நான் வந்து ஐ டோன்ட் நோ ஹவு மச் டைம் இட் வில் டேக் டு பில்ட் த மாடல். அந்த மாடல் கன்சிஸ்டன்ட் ஆக்கணும். அந்த மாடல் வந்து நான் வந்து ப்ராடக்டைஸ் பண்ணணும். அந்த ப்ராடக்டைஸ் பண்ண அப்புறமா மானிட்டைஸ் பண்ணணும். மானிட்டைஸ் பண்ணும்போது ஐ cannot basically make the customer unhappy. Whatever the customer is asking me, it should basically, let's say for example I'm legal firm and I'm saying I'm got legal.ai. I don't know if it's there, but I'm just saying I'm building a thing called legal.ai, which means you're promising a customer that this is replacing your advocate. Now let's say I give my case details. You should make a comprehensive case. You should go to the whole databases of all the similar cases. You should build a case for me and say file this and do all of that for me. இதில் ஏதாச்சும் மிஸ் ஆயிடுச்சுன்னா நான் வந்து கேஸை வந்து லூஸ் பண்ண போகிறேன். Which means it has got big repercussions. It is not simple repercussions. If I'm, let's say, a payroll AI company, one wrong extra zero add பண்ணிச்சுன்னா then you're depleting a massive, and you cannot, like, there's no room for error, which means you have to spend so much time training it, and only when you're ready for it you're going to take it to the market, which means now we don't know how much time it is going to take. The flip side to this is, let's say I do a copycat. ஆல்ரெடி வந்து 10 பேர் இருக்காங்க இந்த இதில், நல்லா பண்ணுறாங்க. ஐ அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் அ ப்ரெடிக்டபிலிட்டின்னா தட் மீன்ஸ் ஏன் மாதிரி 1000 பேர் யோசிக்கிறாங்க.
கரெக்ட்.
So it's not just me in the game, right? There are so many others who are ready to get into the game. This is the problem of the whole. So if you are in the AI game, it's a long-term game, first of all, right? Short-term games are only going to be played by people who have got a massive leverage. So case in point is Scale AI, Windsurf for the CEO. இவங்களாம் வந்து exceptions. Right? And I say it with a lot of caution because a lot of people who are watching might be thinking, AL நம்ம போய் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணா நம்மளும் வந்து ஒரு நாள் வந்து we can also become like a OpenAI or Sam Altman ஆயிடலாம் and all that, right? That's not a reality. They're all outliers, right? So Windsurf for the CEO வந்து they built a phenomenal code editor, and the first time we're hearing something called acquihire. Acquihire is where they don't want your company, they only want the people, right? So 3 billion is paid to acquire, the CEO of the company. They don't want the company. The company went to some other some other company bought them over. Same with Scale AI, right? Scale AI is very amazing use case that this person had built, and it was acquired at a crazy rate, right? To then merged with another company. அந்த மாதிரி நடக்கிறது எல்லாமே வந்து outliers have always been there. It's not in the AI race. Outliers have been in the SaaS race. Outliers have been prior to that in the .com race. அந்த மாதிரி outliers எல்லா இடத்துல இருந்திருக்காங்க. But an outliers வந்து media வந்து is making a big deal out of them and creating massive hero, right? So the problem is that hero image doesn't apply to everybody.
People started mimicking that.
Mimicking them, right? That hero image doesn't get impact. So the point is that if you have ultimate leverage, I would say, let's say for example, you got a patent that you think that you can get, which is very, very unique, right, in a very, very unique way, then I think you have massive leverage. On average, when I see AI startups, I don't see that they have massive leverage. They're still playing the game of finding the market and discovering the market. So it's a long haul, and you should be able to raise. And again, you start your raising, let's say your seed, then in 18 months you need to raise your Series A. If you're and then all the way to Series D. Very rarely will you go to Series Z.
What is that? 19 months? What is
18 months kulla vandu that's all that you'll have for runway.
Okay.
Right, whatever is given to you.
Standard template
Standard template, because the investor has a fund which they're dispersing, and the fund has to close in 8 years, right? They have a cycle to close the fund.
Okay. So another first seed to
correct. So everyone basically a GP, general partner, whenever they start a fund, it's 8 years close idom, which means let's say you're entering the race 4th year.
Okay.
So they're under pressure that 4 years will na fund close pannu, which means I have to return the money back to my limited partners, right? So it's a huge challenge that they are having, and they're only thinking in very short term. 18 months ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ನೀವು ಕೇಟಿಂಗ್, they're only thinking extremely short term, 8 months, 6 months. So until unless you're not able to, and they're not going to give you the full money as well. They're going to, it's all performance based. Release money in tranches. And the second thing you have to show the right kind of performance, right? And the performance is no longer any more growth at all cost. Performance is growth with cash flow. So show me the cash flow, show me slight marginal profitability, and show me that you're also creating a big ripple in the market. இதெல்லாமே tick box பண்ணா next tranche வரும் உங்களுக்கு. So this is the huge challenge that you really have. But are there people today who are able to see the future in a very different way and disrupt? Yes, there are, right? And for those kind of people, capital will come to you. You don't have to come seeking the capital. Capital will find its way and come to you and seek. So that's why Anthropic is able to do a raise of 40 billion and at a massive scale. And OpenAI again did a recent raise, massive raise, because they're able to see the value chain. Like this privilege is only exercised by very few, like people like Elon Musk, who everybody backed, or back in the day Jeff Bezos, everybody backed. But today there are a lot more people like that, right? It's not limited to a very few people. So the outliers numbers have increased definitely, but not everybody is an outlier. That's how I would see it.
ஜோ, நீங்கள் இன்னொரு விஷயம் பண்ணிகிட்ருக்கீங்கன்னு சொன்னீங்க. அது என்னென்னா, big SaaS companies who are having big accounts and big cash flow and who have been struggling to see through or get into this AI space, which they want to do. At the same time, you are seeing the founders, the AI engineers, the real technocrat guys who are really trying to raise funds because you said it's a long-term game and everything. So in which way that Global AI Forum is working towards that? And please also tell me more about Global AI Forum.
Sure, absolutely. So just to go back to the genesis story and then I'll link back to what you just asked. So I was working for an organization for one of my friends. I was building the business unit, the B2B business unit for him. And we were doing a lot of work with banks. And every time we would actually go to a bank and do a POC for them. It will all go great till POC. And after that, it would never go beyond that. So I call it as the pilot purgatory, right? It goes there, it dies there, right? So that's how I would basically call it.
What is that word?
Pilot purgatory, right? So it dies there. And why it dies there is because...
The word itself is very tragic here.
Yeah, exactly. Very tragic, absolutely. Because it dies there because they don't have an enterprise AI policy, or let's say Gen AI policy, whatever kind of AI that is. So if you actually think about it from that angle, why is it so? So one is, there are no committees in an organization who have thought of building a policy in place. And so this became a huge problem. The second problem that we noticed was that everybody says they have AI. How do we know they really have AI? So who is the regulator of sorts to basically say, okay, this person has AI, this company has AI, this company doesn't have AI? The third big problem that we really saw, that every nation or every region had a lot of data, but it was never fed into compute power. So if you take, for example, a Montreal or a SF or any of these places where AI has become really big, it primarily became big because public data was available, for training to really happen. When we remember we spoke about training. So there were a lot of these challenges that we saw, and so the idea was to like help. And initially we thought we call it a CXO axis, where we bring a lot of CEOs and CXOs, the C-suite people together to have conversations on this. And it was more on for profit. But then we soon realized that no, I think we really need to take this, head on, and hence we made it into a not for profit. And the agenda became much bigger. So the idea of Global AI Forum is we help organizations with policy and also governments with policy, AI policy. The second thing is we want adoption to happen, in a very, very big way, where it is very natural. So, for example, we sit down with companies, we sit down with HR teams in the companies to find their use cases and already say, hey, this is already solved. This company has already solved it. So why didn't you try this and see? And then adoption, it's very seamless in that sense, because the same problem that they were trying to solve, which is again the question of build versus buy, the internal teams would build some small solution which is not very effective. And so the adoption was very, very less in that sense, right? And then you had, then the other thing that we really, really work is we also help, the AI companies to find new use cases which are not solved yet. This is what Global AI Forum does. So coming back to this use case, of course, we don't help SaaS companies in particular, but we help IT companies. So IT companies, breakdown pannona, IT companies are largely SIs or GSIs, we say, right? System integrators or global system integrators. They're MSPs, managed service provider, or they basically are companies which do, let's say, integrations or so. So in the global system integrators, if you look at it, what integrations they were doing was they had accounts of SAP, accounts of, let's say, Adobe, larger player, same game by the way, platform, and they would basically go and integrate it. They would build dashboards, they would create data pipelines. It could be a data problem that they're solving. It could be, let's say, a problem around it could be anything. It could be a tech problem that they're solving, but largely around these ecosystems. ERP player already in place, and large Oracle ERP player in place, and some issues out there, and they were solving all these issues, and that's how a lot of IT companies sprung up. Problem is that now agentic AI comes and takes it over. So, for example, case in point is agentic AI can determine how much budget should I deploy for an ad. It can make a determination on the tech piece. It can make a determination on how to run the campaign. So full length on the agentic AI can do with a human in the loop. Now the problem is that enterprises understand this, but they're not able to adopt effectively this whole thing. So these big large companies already have these enterprise accounts, but they are slow to create these kind of products because they are very service in nature. But on the other side, there are AI companies who are doing a phenomenal job, but they don't know how to get into enterprise market. So Global AI Forum is now bringing all these three players together, which means the AI companies or agentic AI companies can connect with SIs, MSPs, and then MSPs can basically go to their own accounts and say, hey, I've got this whole layer of agentic AI, and let's come together, let's help you with this use case. So that's one of the things that we are solving, and that's how, and we're seeing tremendous adoption that's happening because of this, because these people are ready to listen to this. And the way the business works is very different. Right? A lot of AI companies also don't understand how to get into enterprise accounts for a very simple reason, that enterprises have a way of working. Simple case in point, an example would be enterprise, if you do something for them, the CFO would only approve something which has got a time sheet and time and material billing.
Correct.
Right? Whereas platform people only think of platform fee. So let's say I do a platform and I do customization. I put a bill called platform fees plus customization. The CFO doesn't understand what is this customization. The CFO is going to go back and ask, what was this line item? How much effort went into it? Now, the AI company doesn't know how to justify it because there are 30 engineers, and they'll say, my engineer is a top class engineer. and I'm charging so much for it. The CFO would not agree to it. The CFO would say, we should have told this right in the beginning. So when we did an SLA or when we did a MSA, Master Service Agreement, you should have basically mentioned, this is my time and material, 5 people will be deployed for this. So the way the whole system works is very, very different, which agentic AI companies don't understand. System integrators understand this because this is how they lived like for the last 30 years or like 40 years, right? So they know how to really like navigate these waters. So it's a win-win for everybody. So agentic AI companies can give the agentic models, AI models. These people can still customize it, still put time and material, and then build the enterprises. So this is how we saw a unique use case, and I said, okay, let's help.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Actually, this is actually it's a great win-win situation for all the
all
all
of them,
of
absolutely.
them.
Yes.
And
yes.
beautiful. Now we are seeing a lot of youngsters, especially computer engineers and tech people, are learning AI, want to catch up with AI engineering, and want to become a demanded workforce or something like that. What is the AI professional is required to do, or do they have to learn anything deeper or wider?
To actually start with, there is nothing called AI professional.
Okay.
Okay. So, while there have been so many job
Thank
titles
you
at
for
the white,
correcting.
yeah, there have been so
Let
many.
me understand
How
what
do you?
I said.
There's maybe so many titles with AI, but largely they're dealing with data, right? So, in essence, the models are already built. Like you're not going to go and build a new model, right? There are very few people who actually do that, and of course, if you are like of that pedigree, then of course you are going to be there, right? There's no doubt about it. But the basics always remain the basics, right? So get strength, be extremely strong on the fundamentals. It could be mathematics, it could be basic conceptual understanding of a few things, because we are getting into a day and age wherein we are become extremely lazy to learn. For example, anything and everything. Today we go to ChatGPT and ask, "What is this?" Which is actually good, but in a way, the fundamentals are broken. It still goes back to the fundamentals of understanding logic. How does logic really work? It goes back to the fundamentals of understanding how data sets actually work. How do you really like use these data sets, find patterns in the data sets? How do data structures actually work? Go back to extreme basics, like what is the stack? How does the stack actually work? How do you retrieve? Because if you understand those basics effectively, you understand data structures effectively. Once you understand data structures effectively, you understand what AI is in effect, right? So a lot of times this whole hype around AI, learning AI, just because you learn AI, nobody is going to hire you for it, right? Is that simple and straightforward? I work largely with AI companies. I consult, I advise them. Nobody's hiring anybody because they just use the word AI engineers. In fact, like just yesterday, we hired somebody who was a chemical engineer in IIT who got nothing to do with AI, but the person understands the basics of what AI is. So that's how hiring is absolutely happening today. So it's about understanding patterns, understanding the basics of it, right? So I would take 2 steps back and say that if you are pursuing this, understand what your leverage, your strength is at this given point of time, right? Just go back to that. And today the problem with this was not a my generation problem or your generation problem. The present generation problem is they're good at many things, right? It's
We
not.
are all same generation. Remember that. Something.
Right.
Okay. As if I'm very old. It sounds.
Yeah,
Okay, fine.
absolutely. We're just like one
Okay.
generation above. But the point is that today the choice is many, right? Because when I say choice is many, people have honed many skills. Let's say, for example, I could be pretty good at video editing. At the same time, I could be pretty good at racing. I could be pretty good at, let's say, playing a guitar. I could be pretty good at, let's say, building an AI model. And I don't know what to pursue because everything seems to be like the variables are like stacking up for me, right? That's a huge problem. So how do you really break this? So you break this by only looking at 2 things: supply, demand, right? You're not going to be married to what you're doing for the rest of your life because things are changing rapidly, which is very good, which means that you can change extremely rapidly, right? So for this season, I would say think in season, not in as a career path, career,
Brilliant.
think in a season. In this season, what is that? The demand is high. which means you have it, you can supply that to that demand. Second thing, can you leverage monetization to the highest level, right? So, for example, again, disclaimer here, I make a passive income, right, by posting on LinkedIn, by the way, right? So, there are companies who pay me to post a certain things on LinkedIn. I don't see myself as an influencer and all of that, right? But I do see that, and I'm very picky choosy with the companies that I represent. So every time you see a post that is black in color with black carousel, it is basically there is somebody who is helping. I also make it amply clear. But that gives a lot of money, by the way. I mean, companies are ready to pay you about $2,000 to put a post out, which means today, if you're going to work only to let's say create a livelihood, I think you should move away from that, because to create livelihood, there are 1,000 ways to do that.
Much easier way.
Much easier way, right? But what you want to create is two fundamental things. One, are you creating foundational layer for the future? You may be good at great many things, but remember, things are massively changing, which means after a certain age, you will not be able to maneuver the way you maneuver, because our brain works that way, our neural systems work that way. It will stop learning. When it stops learning, it's going to rely on muscle memory. What is your muscle memory that you're building? Is that simple? Now, today you have options, but let's say 10 years on the line, you will not have options. You can't race the way you race today. You can't do things the way you do today. So what I would say is you go back to learning the fundamentals. Second thing is do things. Let's say, for example, you want to build an AI app. Don't go and learn a course on building an AI app. It will never help you build an AI app, right? It's just like you want to learn riding a cycle, go and cycle. It's that simple. Go to Lovable. Go to, there are many tools like Lovable where you can go and create a new app. Find out what is really happening in the background. Right? Let's say I want to create an app, which is a very, very simple app, like Chai app. The Chai app is nothing but it basically takes orders from every company at 3 p.m. to deliver chai at 4 p.m. So it's an order taking app. So somebody may want ginger chai, somebody may want masala chai, blah, blah, blah. And I'm creating an app. But I'm actually looking at what does it actually create for me. So I am understanding, it's actually creating, a backend code, right? There's a logic behind it. Fantastic. It's now saving in some data structure. Now it's using authorization. So sometimes it may ask you to connect, authorization platform like an Auth0 or some authorization platform which is readily open source. So when you start learning it, so whatever I'm telling may be like Greek and Latin for some of you, but all these things you will learn. You will realize, idallam irukku, or app na idhaan pola. So once you start realizing that, it's super easy. That means everybody today can create an app. And that's what I really believe. I really believe that we're getting into a phase where everybody will have apps, right? Actually speaking, in fact, it's going to become very difficult for ad companies in the future, very near distant future, because there are agents that are going to work on your behalf, which will block those ads, which will actually say, "Illa, this is not what Joseph wants," and it will be an agent for you. It will actually, if it's interested, it will say, "Okay, show me the demo," or I want to know the pricing. It will engage on your behalf, right? So while we think about agents which actually go and do things, there are agents that are going to also do things for you. When we get into that kind of era, then there are so many beautiful things that are coming. So the way to learn is to basically deep dive. I learn every day that way. So I go to something called There's an AI. So every day I go and I discover new tools, and it's brilliant, right? Let's say, for example, I see somebody creating. The other day I saw somebody creating a post where point A and point B is getting connected. Like there's a small dot that goes. So I wanted to know which AI video editor does that. And I finally figured out Figma itself helps you to do that. And so I had to create animation on that, and I had to set it at this much time, and then leave it at this. So point A and point B is defined. So I learned that, right? So the more you see things around you, the more you're able to understand, there's somebody who's doing it, which means how are they doing it? Back in the day, I saw a brilliant Malayalam short film of dinosaurs. Somebody created a whole thing on dinosaurs, dinosaur eggs, right? I remember 8 months back. And it was a really beautiful animation, very close to photo reality, brilliant stuff. And I want to know which AI model to use. And I started digging and digging, and that's how I discovered Kling.ai, which is a phenomenal model from China. So the mari onnuna paakumbodhu, like, always remember, if somebody is doing, you're seeing it, it means somebody's already done it. So go and figure out how these things are coming together, and just like be curious as much as possible. And that's how I am. Like when I see a post, if you look at my mobile, I have got so many screenshots. The moment I see something, I screenshot it, and I got an app called Screenshot Got Pro, it goes automatically, gets there. It automatically, like, groups itself. But I every day encounter brilliant stuff, right? There's somebody who's saying something around it and all that. Third thing is go to YouTube, like brilliant, like just like how you're listening to this podcast, go to YouTube, and there are people who have spelled it out. Like I listened to a guy called Greg Eisenberg, and Greg Eisenberg would basically like do a podcast like this, but he would actually get somebody else and say, hey, let's build together on Cursor an app. Let's do this together, right? And so they will build an app together. They'll show everybody how this is built, and he would basically like just like how you're interacting with me, but there's somebody who's doing and showing. So there are so many beautiful things that are there right now, which are available. So you don't need to really like go and learn. But remember, you will only learn if there's a context.
Okay.
So till you don't create a context for learning is useless.
So there is no question of wider or deeper. It is a more question of a curiosity and the context.
Context, exactly. So if I have a context to let's say tune my bike, then I'm going to go and figure out, like, go and meet that many number of mechanics and figure out what is the best way to tune my bike. So it's a curiosity thing, right? So I'm going to be always on it. I see a new bike, like the same kind of bike that I have, but the sound is different. And then I'm very curious because I'm going to go unashamedly going to ask that person, what did you do then? Your bike on the So the curiosity and the context in this, it is anyways going to happen, right? Until it's not compelling enough, I'm not going to be bothered. And learning cannot happen because you decide one day morning, oh, today morning I want to learn about AI. It's totally useless. It has to be application driven. You need to have some context. And if you have context, and this is for everybody across the age groups, by the way, right? So let's say you are into accounting or finance, right? Go and figure out what AI agents are there. AI agent right? I think you guys have created a brilliant app which works inside Tally. So all this is already there. Somebody should discover it, figure out the context, be curious about it, because it's actually solving time. So if you actually think about it, back in the day, when I was hustling and building my businesses, I never was able to give time for my family. Today, I'm able to give a lot of time for my family, by the way.
But you have built better and bigger business now.
Yeah, it's growing, and because there are agents that do a lot of work. In fact, if I have to hire somebody, now I think whether to hire somebody or is there an agent which can do that for me. Is that simple and straightforward, right? And like I use there's a platform that I advise called Simple AI. So I would basically go to Tanuj in Simple AI and say, Tanuj, build this and give this to me. And actually build it. Like, for example, I create a lot of content pieces for Global AI Forum right now. In fact, we are creating white papers. We're going deep, much deeper, not a tofu content, right? And we cracked the whole piece. There's an agent that will go and research. It'll bring the whole thing to one place. There's an agent that...
What is tofu content?
Top of the funnel content, right? So I'm not solving for top of the funnel. I'm solving for bottom of the funnel, right? So I'm trying to create more deeper pieces of content, which I want to create. I want to create white papers. Let's say I want to every month analyze who are the top 50 players in agentic AI, rank them. I give a criteria to rank them, and it will go and get all of them, use the public forum data, whatever data is available, and it ranks them and gives all of that to me. And I don't know how to do that every month. Automatically it does it. And now we're trying to create an agent which will go on Canva and basically also do the design part of it. So pick all of that, and we're able to do it without Canva, but you also now want to do it inside the Canva aspect and see. So I think if you have the curiosity, and I wanted to also end with this by saying that we're not very far away from actually building $1 billion company, as Sam Altman says, with just one member, just you. You don't need more people. A single person can build $1 billion business today, and we're very, very close to that.
Great,
Right?
great.
So that's proven.
நிறைய இன்ஸ்பிரேஷன், நிறைய டேக் அவே. அண்ட் நீங்கள் நிறைய ஏஐ டூல்ஸ் கனாவனான்னு யூஸ் பண்ணுறீங்க டே டு டே லைஃப்பில்.
ரைட்.
எந்த ஏஐ டூல், எந்த ஏஐ அப்ளிகேஷன் விச் ஹஸ் எக்ஸைட்டட் யூ தட் யூ ஃபீல் தட் இட் இஸ் அண்டர் ரேட்டட்?
I think Claude. And I think I really feel I'm right now power user of Claude. In fact, I have subscribed to the Max plan.
Okay.
And if you ask me, I can't live without Claude. That's the way my life.
ஆக்சுவலாக நான் கிளாடில் ஒரு தமிழ் டிரான்ஸ்லேஷன்
Right.
அமேசிங் பண்ணது. ஆக்சுவலாக எனக்கு மொழியாக்கம் ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும், டிரான்ஸ்லேஷன் ஒர்க் ரொம்ப பிடிக்கும்.
Right.
ஸோ பார்க்கும்போது ரொம்ப பிரமிப்பாக இருந்தது. ஒரு கான்டெம்பரரி லாங்குவேஜில் பண்ணேன், திருநெல்வேலி லாங்குவேஜில் பண்ணேன், தஞ்சாவூர் லாங்குவேஜில் பண்ணேன், ஸ்போக்கனில் பண்ணேன், ஒரு சின்ன கிட் பேசுகிற வேர்ட்ஸு ஒவ்வொன்றுமே அதை அவ்வளோ பியூட்டிஃபுல்லாக அதை ஒர்க் பண்ணுச்சு.
Absolutely.
அது பெரிய ஆச்சரியமாக இருந்தது. அது
கரெக்ட். நீங்கள் கேட்டிங்கன்னா ஐ திங்க் இட்ஸ் ஃபார் மீ இட்ஸ் Claude ஃபார் அ சிம்பிள் ரீசன். எதுக்குன்னா ஐ யூஸ் லிட்டரலி ஃபார் எவ்ரி திங். ஜஸ்ட் டு கிவ் யூ அ சிம்பிள் திஸ் திங், ஐ ரன் மை ஹோல் டே ஆன் Notion, பை த வே. ஸோ எவ்ரி சிங்கிள் டே my whole day is mapped on Notion, right? And there's a Notion calendar that gets mapped to all the calendar related activities. I have got Asana for the team. I got Todoist for my personal tasks. So this is basically my productivity system. But where Claude comes is, Claude comes and stitches everything. For example, let's say I finish a meeting. Then in that meeting, I record the meeting, whatever I do, and whenever I do any meeting, it's getting recorded on something called Granola, right? Brilliant tool for recording meetings and all of that. And Granola gives me two things. It gives me the synopsis of the meeting. It also gives me action items, ellame kuduthrom. But it also gives me the whole transcript, right? Which I like a lot. I take the transcript and I throw it to Claude and ask 3 things from Claude. Like, so what are the specific actionables that I need to do, specific actionables that the other person has to do, and things that need to go on my to-do list, and things that need to go for my team, right? That's the first part. Second thing I ask is, how good was in my communication, right? What I could have asked better, how I could have reduced the meeting time, right? Where did I, like for a sales meeting, I'll ask whether like my pitch landed really well. Where was I weak? What could I have done better? Did I actually like communicate the value very clearly? So every time this instance runs, I'm becoming a better person, right? So it throws it brings and all that. Then also it kind of gives me a very specific thing about what new ideas emerge. In this whole conversation, there are so many brilliant things that I would have said, or you would have said that is like mirroring the whole thing to me. But அந்த ஆஹா மூமெண்ட் ஜென்ரேட் ஆகுது, பட் ஆஹா மூமெண்ட் சஸ்டெயின் ஆகலை. ஸோ ஐ கேன் ஆக்சுவலி கோ பேக் டு Claude and say, hey, forget the very transactional stuff, but there's something brilliant that during the sales call that this person mentioned. So I can take that nuance and throw it into, I have a tab in the Notion called big thinking. So I throw it there. இது டெஃபினட்டாக நம்ம போய் இன்னும் ஆராய்ச்சி பண்ணணும், should think more deeper on this. So I put it there. So Claude does so many things for me. I'm just giving one example of it, right, of whatever it is. Second thing, I've trained Claude with my language, my tonality, the way I talk, the way I pause. So if I generate a reel, the script is as closer to how I talk.
Great.
Right? So I can put it in Hagen, and I'm now building my avatar. And that I've been doing it for like last 8 months. So in next 1 month, you will start seeing a lot of reels coming without me talking, right? So it's going to be just my avatar talking and all that. But adukallame Claude has helped me with my scripting, because I very intentionally like added a lot of things into Claude, right? And Claude basically now maps to your Google Drive. So whatever is in my Google Drive is in the Claude. So when I tell it to go and do a swipe and come, it does a swipe and come. Of course, there's privacy concerns, all of that are there, but like literally, I feel it's very underrated because it can do any kind of coding tasks. Really, really brilliant, right? It writes, it compiles a really good code for you. If it is any other task, I'm writing an email, right? I use Claude to write emails. I want to prepare for anything and everything. I think Claude is my go-to place for doing most of my stuff, right? So I think it's very, very underrated, because I see people using ChatGPT a lot, but Claude intelligence layer is much, much effective. and I found that if I'm doing there's something called projects where you can repeatedly do same thing, right? So every day my LinkedIn post, there's a project, and I go to my project, I run the project, I throw anything at it, it beautifully gives me a LinkedIn post, right? So of course there are so many post generators, but this is giving me the way I would write it, in the exactly the
உங்க டோன்,
angle,
உங்க ஸ்டைல், உங்க
என்னோட how I would look at that point of view, எல்லாமே வந்து beautiful it does, and of course I've trained it as well. And the second thing is, of course, not because I'm advising them, the second thing is simple AI, because I think Sandeep, who's built simple AI, is brilliant. Not a plug here, but I really like appreciate the way that Sandeep has really been able to build it, because Sandeep has been a CTO for Picker, for Oyo, prior to doing what is, and has also built some great stuff for Cisco as well in the Valley. So when Sandeep actually built this tool, they really thought through all the use cases. So we solve all enterprise use cases, and I'm really amazed, right? So it could be, let's say, monitoring oil and gas supply chain, or it could be let's say doing reconciliation for credit, any kind of aspect. Simply is able to do production in less than a month for massive enterprise use cases. Appreciation for agentic AI, enterprise agentic AI happened because of simple AI, right? And of course there are many tools like simple AI, and like Reliance AI, I can name a lot of them, but I really was able to see that very underrated, because like it's built, like all these guys have built everything, but அது வந்து யூஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு யாருமே இல்லை. There are very few people who use it. So I think I'm very excited about these things.
how you are staying updated with this all AI knowledge, because every day so many breakthroughs are happening, so much of things happening.
So I think same goes to
Curiosity, your curiosity.
curiosity, and it's also like filtering stuff, right? I'm being intentional. Like the problem is that we do not spend like specific time. For example, every night I want to know what really happened in the world, not just AI. It's just like how we would tune ourselves to go and watch an 8 o'clock news, like prime time news. Adhe madri, I've created a space for me where I want to know what is really happening. Now, I allow my mind to wander however it wants to wander. So let's say, for example, I watch Nepal protest. My next question would be that what triggered the protest? My next question is, if they've shut down social media, how did these guys communicate with each other? How did they group themselves? So when I start digging in deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, there are so many questions that I have, right? It could go into conspiracy mode, it could go into any other direction.
Speculation mode.
Yeah. But the good thing is that it helps me to like fill that whole thing, but I have a space for it, right? We can't do it every time, and sporadically panna mudiyadhu. There are sometimes things get generated as you see and you hear, you really want to know and you want to fill the curiosity gap immediately, but it's good to also keep a space for it, right? And every evening I do that. And second thing is, I've got friends whom we meet every week, and they're all AI enthusiasts. So when we meet, we always have great conversations, right? Because there's somebody who's telling something that none of us have heard. It's absolutely new, and it's amazing. So you really start to realize, oh, okay, what we know is not enough. There's so much really happening in the world. Always have good friends like that whom you can catch up. And the third is, of course, like doing deep dives, right? Always doing deep dives every single like, for example, any use case I want to solve, I learned this from Elon Musk, which is first principles thinking. Just break it down. இப்போ எது பண்ணாலுமே வந்து I break it down to the basic. இப்போ வந்து, like, for example, I want to start a podcast na, I will basically break it down to how to do a podcast, right? So what is more essential? So right from, let's say, I'll break it down into 5 or 6 things, right? So how do I get a guest? So that's the first aspect I want to solve for. The second aspect I want to solve for, what is the basic equipment that I need if I'm going to do a podcast which is virtual, not necessarily like talking to each other. And third thing is, okay, once I do it, what is the editor that I need to use? Should I use, let's say, a CapCut? Should I use, let's say, a proper, like, a good editor, right? So I need to figure those pieces out. The fourth is basically like, okay, how do I do distribution? So if you start doing first principles thinking that way, breaking it down, what you gain is like massive, right?
Correct.
So a lot of times what we do is we go into one rabbit hole. So most of us get really stuck because you think about, oh, I want to get a guest, how do I get a guest, and we get stuck. So first principles thinking doesn't allow you to get into rabbit holes, and if you get stuck, it says, okay, I'll come back to this later, let me go and solve the other part and come back. So when you do that, you're able to do like move massive in a short period of time, and you start solving for bigger things. So first principles thinking, and always be solving, right? So if you, I think, have this, I think it's much easier to find all the AI tools, because you don't have to go and find an AI tool, because you'll realize that okay, இதுக்கு வந்து இந்த டெஃபினட்டாக ஒரு டூல் இருக்குது. And I always think that I always start with the premise saying that இதுக்கு ஒரு டூல் டிஃப்ரெண்ட்டாக இருக்கும்,
பின்னாடி யாரும் ஒருத்தர்
இருக்கும். ஆமாம். ஸோ அது வந்து let me go and chase that and figure that out. Like for example, very simple thing is my team wanted to save, we were saving a lot of stuff. Like let's say you're doing a photo shoot, like you're doing a shoot now. The biggest problem is memory, எப்போவுமே, right? Where do you go and solve, save the raw video அப்படின்னு இருக்கும்போது we had lot of options, right from buying a disk, hard disk, to naming whatever it is. Finally found something called Playground. Playground வந்து we pay for 5 GB, we pay just $10 for 5 GB. But the brilliant thing about Playground is it's not the saving thing, it sorts everything for us. It sorts everything for us. Searchல வந்து if I just put a phrase like AI is hype அப்படின்னு போட்டால் கரெக்டாக அந்த என்னென்ன பாட்காஸ்ட்டில் AI is hype இருக்கோ அதெல்லாம் கரெக்டாக வந்துடும். So it does a brilliant job of like archiving properly, putting things in place, automatically like sorting. So எல்லாமே பண்ணி தருது, right? So which means anybody in the team knows what to go. We don't have to have a knowledge base for that. இதுதான் நீ சர்ச் பண்ணணும், அப்படி தான் சர்ச் பண்ணணும்னா இல்லை. So you keep searching for stuff like this, I think you stumble upon amazing stuff, which really blows your mind.
Thank you, Joe. Time போனதே தெரியல. Actually, I wish Global AI Forum as well as நீங்கள் உங்களுடைய நாலேஜ் அண்ட் இந்த என்கேஜ்மெண்ட்டை இன்னும் டீப்பராக ஆக்குங்க. நிறையா நீங்கள் சொன்ன அந்த 3 என்டிட்டிக்கும் நீங்கள் அந்த ப்ராப்ளம்ஸை சால்வ் பண்ணுங்க. ஐ வாண்ட் யூ டு கண்டக்ட் திஸ் திங்ஸ் அவேர்னஸ் இன் அ பிக் வே.
தேங்க்யூ.
அண்ட் இன்னைக்கு எங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக இருந்தது, எங்களுடைய வியூவர்ஸ்க்கும் யூஸ்ஃபுல்லாக இருக்கும். வில் டெஃபினெட்லி மீட் அகெயின் ஆல்சோ.
Absolutely.
தேங்க்யூ ஜோசப்.
Looking forward.
Thank you so much.
Likewise.
brandpuli.com பிஸ்னஸ்மேன் கிரியேட்டர் இவங்க 2 பேரும் ஒரு காம்படிட்டிவ் மார்க்கெட்டில் கான்டென்ட்டை வச்சு எப்படி வின் பண்ணுறது அப்படின்றத சொல்லித்தரதுக்கான ஒரு அகாடமி அண்ட் ஸ்டுடியோவாக இருக்குது. எங்களோட கனெக்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு எங்களுடைய வாட்ஸ்அப் சேனல், லிங்க்டின் அண்ட் இன்ஸ்டாகிராம் பேஜை ஃபாலோ பண்ணுங்கள்.